Listen, I'm so excited to have all of you here. I think it's such a cool space too because we're all in different genres of the sports world, right? So I first want to go and ask Tia, especially, coming from the WNBA, we always talk about, the difference in economic opportunities between the NBA, the WNBA, athletes, women athletes, male athletes in general. So I want to ask you, what is a way to go ahead and make that equal? How can we go ahead and bridge that gap and make it so that women who are just as popular and just as dominant in their profession are getting the same opportunities?
I personally think that making it equal would be kind of hard because the NBA is 75 years in, and I think the WNBA is only 25. I think where we at now, we've made a lot of strides compared to the beginning, but as far as just like having the NBA support us and other sports and men and women coming together, I think that brings a lot of viewership, and with viewership comes a lot of money. So the more support, I think the more money we'll make.
Right. Justin, I mean, from the other side of things, you obviously write about sports, you're engraved in the culture. How have you seen men go ahead and embrace the WNBA and women athletes in general to go ahead and start bridging that economic gap between sports?
Yeah, I think that's an incredible question. I was just talking to Renee Montgomery recently.
Shout out to Renee.
Yeah, shout out to Renee. Really good, good person. And we were talking about she was like, yo, the NBA has always supported us. Like they've been huge fans of us. It's just been like the common fan where the gap is. And just over the last couple of years, of course, there's still so much work that needs to be done to make things right. Of course, we can have conversations around pay gap and what women are paid and what they should be paid. And so I think the more and more these conversations, and they need to happen, and these conversations need to lead to action. Tia just talked about endorsement opportunities, branding, and things of that nature. I think that's going to continue to grow the game. That's going to continue to create that emotional connection. Because once you have an emotional connection to something, then the economic gains are going to come because you're going to support what you really care about. So it's just a matter of continuing to show that women's sports are sports. I was just talking backstage. I got a little boy on the way in January, and I'm super excited about that. Thank you. And one of the things I want to teach him, I'm a big sports fan. We're going to Mystics games the same way we're going to Wizards games. I ain't taking him to the football team in Washington. I can't do all that. Some things I can't do. But I just want to show him, yo, these things are out here. This is normal. This is what we're supposed to see. And if you're not trying to push something forward, you're holding it back. And we see that in all walks of life. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, Ibtihaj, you're in a sport that, doesn't get the same level of attention that, say, the NBA or even the WNBA gets, but it's also a sport that I don't think many people know women compete in. So how does that go ahead and affect how you're able to elevate through that career, through that sport, through that field, and also get those same opportunities?
Well, I think that it starts at home. In our family, I'm African American, we were not given a choice on whether or not we participated in sport. It was more so of what sport do you want to play? And I think that was my parents, their intention was to make sure they knew where we were after school. But in a sport like fencing, I gravitated towards it because the athletes were fully covered. And we all know, when we think about fencing, it's a historically white sport. You don't see a lot of people who look like us in the sport. And so my mission now as a professional athlete, as someone who's competed at the Olympics, won an Olympic medal, is to make sure that our kids see themselves in this sport. And before we came out, you talked about Serena and Venus.
Right.
They're so impactful, even for someone like me, not the same sport, but I see so much of myself in them. They participated in a predominantly white sport of tennis. The beads that Serena and Venus wore, I know that most black women can relate to the braids and the beads.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think in order for us to really push the agenda of getting our girls not only in sports, but helping them stay in sports, like Justin said, we have to support. We can all talk a big game about women in sports. How do we support WNBA players? How do we support our swimmers, our gymnasts, our fencers? Really, we have to show up and support. And I think that that's one thing that, especially the Black community, has never faltered in, is supporting. So put your money where your mouth is and show up to these games, show up to even the smaller sports.
You bring up a really good point, which leads to my next question, existing in predominantly white sports. And I think that also with women existing in the sports space in general, there are people who still believe, misogynistically, that women don't have a place in sports in any aspect, whether it's playing them, whether it's discussing them. I mean, anyone who exists in the media game can go ahead and tell you, the minute you start critiquing a game, the first thing they'll tell you is, well, did you play football? How would you do that? How would you possibly know what a touchdown is? You didn't play. So I want to ask, and I'll start with you because you mentioned it in your last answer, did you ever feel it necessary to kind of hide pieces of who you were in order to be awarded the same opportunities that men are awarded for being who they are? We see men, on the court and they're celebrated for being aggressive but in the best of way because they're competitors, right? When LeBron stomps his feet or, Steph Curry goes night-night, things like that, they're celebrated. But when a woman shows that same level of tenacity, it's almost like, whoa, calm down, relax. So have you ever felt the need to hide pieces of who you were in order to be successful? And if not, what made you comfortable in order to not do that?
One of the interesting things about living at such a unique intersection as a visibly black woman, as a visibly Muslim woman, is that I don't really have, I don't have the opportunity to hide parts of myself. When I walk in a room, people kind of, throw all of these things at me and what they think or who they think I should be, what they think I should say. And as an athlete, I always found sport, especially the sport of fencing, as a space where I could just be myself. I love to compete. I love to be better than all the guys. I love to win. And I feel like I was always chasing that better version of myself. And similar to even what we see in athletes like Serena, like we see in Venus, where they put, this masculine kind of image and attach that to us as black women in the sports world, that you're aggressive, that, you're domineering, you're all these things, and you're known for your strength more so than your tactics. And that's something that I saw throughout my professional career. And it's like you're constantly pushing back against that, but at the same time trying to excel in your sport.
Right. Tia, I mean, the comparison between the WNBA and the NBA could not be more obvious when we talk about this very thing. So same question for you. Did you ever feel the need to not be as competitive, not be as outspoken, not be as creative with your tunnel walk looks as men are, to be awarded those same opportunities so you don't come across as too much?
It's crazy. I actually get the opposite.
Wow.
I think that because I dress girly or I'm into other things that basketball players are normally known for. I think when I play, people are shocked at the fact that I do play aggressive or that I do play hard or I play aggressive defense. I think it's shocking, so it's kind of like a good thing for me because everybody think I'm sweet, like I'm not gonna play hard because I'm cute. But I think that's kind of like, I think it's a good thing. You can't really please everybody, so I don't think stopping who you are is gonna help you at all. So I think the more that people are allowed to be who they are, it's the more people support. The more you see real, it's the more supportive I feel like the WNBA is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Justin, you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we give people, and especially women, that agency to show that emotion. We love sports because they're emotional. And you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows. I love the fact that, when A'ja Wilson and the Aces won the WNBA title a couple of days ago, she was at the press conference yo, it's 4 shots at the door. I'm like, yeah, that's my type of party right there. And I think it's great. She's excited. She just won a world championship. She should be able to, in the NBA Finals or the Super Bowl, we see champagne showers everywhere, and we don't bat an eye. Allow this woman to bask in the joy of something she worked her entire life for. And I think that's incredible. And honestly, I'm a big fan of storytelling. That's part of the story. She could have easily got up there and been like, both teams played hard, but we won. And that's not a fun story to tell.
Right.
you know, so you got to give people the space to be themselves, and that's where storytelling comes from. And if you have a good story to tell, again, that goes back to the emotional connection to something. You created a memory, I remember where I was when the Aces got their first title. The same way we say, I remember where I was when LeBron got that block in the finals.
Or when Serena played her last U.S. Open.
It's the same thing.
Right. So I want to ask you, with storytelling, with opportunities comes growth. So Justin, this question's for you. Where is there more growth in this industry? Is it in broadcast/streaming, or is it in merch, ticketing? Where do you think it lies, the more opportunities?
Honestly, I think it's everywhere. Of course, you know, we're seeing more coverage for women's sports on TV, but it could be a lot better. You know, I compare it to, like, you know, it's the internet. We're never going back to the days of dial-up internet. You know, we're not going back to that. Like, but there's still a lot of ways we can improve the way we cover women's sports. I think, like, I would love to see more of an emphasis on fantasy sports and women's sports. The same way we do with we got fantasy basketball teams for the NBA. Why can't you do that for the WNBA?
Fantasy basketball is extremely difficult, though.
Look, it's a reason.
Let's put it out there. It's very, very hard. That's why football is a little bit easier to go ahead and make some money.
Fantasy sports is more like nightmare sports to me. I never win. But no, so there's opportunities there. You mentioned merch. Like, I'm a big merch fan. Like, every time I go to a concert, I always buy an overpriced T-shirt. You know why? Because it creates that memory for me. Like, you know, I would love to see, you know, women's jerseys more easily accessible on something like Mitchell and Ness. Like, I would love to get a, you know,
Absolutely.
a Sue Bird or a Candace Parker jersey. I would love to get an AJ Andrews softball college jersey. But, you know, the easier you make that stuff to find, the more the connection with the sport continues to grow.
I mean, we saw how monumental the moment was, you know, in the wubble, as they call it, the WNBA bubble during the pandemic. The orange sweatshirts, like, it was a phenomenon. And if you didn't have one, you weren't cool. Like, I got one. Shout out to Gatorade. They gave me one, and I was so excited. I was like, I'm part of the crew. Like, we see that it works. We see that merch, you know, surrounded by, under the foundation rather, of women's sports can go ahead and make waves in social media. So I want to ask you a follow-up, and this is for every single person, just take it down the line. I mean, we've seen businesses since, I want to say, around the pandemic, that's when it really started to be highlighted, to go ahead and say, listen, we're going to invest in women's sports. We're going to invest in women athletes, and we're going to go ahead and give them opportunities. We're going to go ahead and make sure that it's more equal than ever before. Do you think that they've made good on that promise? Do you see any progression on that promise, or do you think they've fallen short?
You know, I can't speak for, obviously, every single company. I've seen improvements, and I've just seen basically press releases. What I would like to see more of, like, yes, donating money is great, but you also have to donate, like, your time and your presence and your actual cause behind it. Because you can donate, you can go on GoFundMe.com and donate $100 to something and just write it off on your taxes in a year. But, like, if you actually believe in a cause and you believe in something that, like, you know, making sure you're in these meetings speaking up, like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should try, like, a fantasy sports for the WNBA, just see how it goes. That's better than, you know, just being a voice box. Because we see it all the time on social media, like, oh, I'm going to change my avatar to a black circle. Just
the black box.
You know, and then, you know, a couple of weeks later, it's basically business as usual. So you have to, money is important, but time and personal connection, that's priceless.
I mean, I'm curious, and I don't know if anyone would be able to answer this question, but when we look at the marketing that's done, especially for a sport like, you know, the WNBA, women's basketball, what amount or how much money is really going to the black athletes? Like, WNBA is predominantly black women who play, but when I think of who's getting those marketing dollars, there are not a lot of black women who are getting those dollars. So,
I mean, it's definitely a conversation that has been had, and it's definitely something that people are aware of. And I think it goes back to, you know, it's multi-layered, right? There's a way for big organizations to go ahead and invest into women's sports, but then there's also a way for women entities that go ahead and employ and are supposed to uplift female athletes to do the work themselves. It starts at home. And I mean, Tia, I feel like you can speak to that better than anyone.
You know, when it comes to the WNBA, we don't get paid as much as the men. And I think with that being said, for women in any occupation, having multiple streams of income is always, you know, helpful. So I think you being able to be more than just a basketball player or more than just whatever you are and showing that to the world, you kind of get more opportunities like that. A lot of people that sleep on social media, but that's marketing.
That is.
almost on TV.
Right.
Like, I mean, just you honestly could just be who you are and use yourself as a platform and make money off that. And then I think just, again, having multiple streams and showing multiple parts of yourself opens up a lot of doors.
I think that's absolutely factual. I think Instagram, social media in general, is like the greatest resume that you can have. It's visual, it's right there, you can't hide it. You know, it's your most authentic self, at least you hope it is. But, you know, that also brings me to my next question. I feel like every woman in this industry, whether you're an athlete or, you know, you're on the other side of the spectrum and you're behind the mic, has been asked the same question. And I actually hate this question. What is it like being a woman in sports? Well, it's kind of like being a man in sports. It's kind of, you know, we do the same thing. So I want to flip that question, and I really want to go ahead and ask you this, is what about being a woman in sports is your superpower? I don't want to focus on the negative. I want to focus on what highlights that and how you go ahead and you use that to your advantage.
I'm going to talk about what I feel like I saw. My first year in the WNBA, I was in the bubble, and that was the first time I seen people be mothers and play basketball, like having to literally have a 2-year-old sitting at practice, and that was just wild to me. Like, they come into practice, you got to really take care of a child, and I don't think the men have to do that. And I feel like when you play basketball, you kind of put in a box, or when you're just a woman, period, you put in a box, and it's so many layers to being a woman in a sport and still having responsibilities of a wife, a mother, everything. So I feel like just seeing them take care of all that and still be at the top of their game and be a professional, I think that's the most beautiful thing.
I tell people all the time, you know, the superpower of being a woman is being multi-layered, multi-dimensional. You can be smart and sexy, you can be submissive and dominant, you can be a wife, a mother, but you could also be a businesswoman. And I think our superpower is not allowing ourselves to be put into a box, because there's so many things that you can do. There's so many different hats you can wear, and you can wear them all successfully. This whole era of having to, you know, choose and having to, you know, you can't have it all. I think that dynamic and that conversation has changed, because I think we see women, you know, having the ability to have it all. You may not have it all perfectly, but that's life, right? Like, nothing's perfect, but you're able to do multiple things. But same question for you. I mean, what do you feel like being a woman in this industry, what is your superpower?
I think one of the most beautiful things about my career has been the opportunity to show the world a different lens of the Muslim community. We're always pushing back against the stereotypes and misconceptions that people have about who Muslims are. And when most of us turn on the television, a movie, there's always these really dark, negative, you know, images thrown at us about the Muslim community. They're mostly Arab, and they never include African Americans. So to be a professional athlete that does wear hijab, I feel like it's an opportunity to be a window into our community, to show that we can be athletes, especially as women, but it's also a lens, the opportunity for our girls to see themselves in sport and think past society's limited expectations of them. And I think that that's my superpower, and not only being like one of one in this space, but hopefully encouraging the next generation to be involved in sport at the same level.
So on the other side of that conversation, I want to ask, any internal battles that you felt as a woman in this industry, as an athlete, that you privately go ahead and you deal with, but you feel like men don't go ahead and deal with those same struggles?
I mean, it's like you said, it's such a layered conversation. I'm thinking of it from the Black perspective, because I think as athletes, we're carrying a lot of baggage with us. Like for me, every time I step on the fencing strip, there's so much I have to carry with me. My sport is not, you know, like basketball. It's not, you know, you throw a ball in the hoop, or not like football where you have to get the ball in the end zone. It's a little bit different, where you have an official telling you whose point is whose. So you have to think about implicit bias plays a really big part in our sport. And you know, it's not just how you look, it's what country you're from. You might have, you know, a referee who's being paid by another country to make sure that you don't win. So it's just a lot of things that go into every single match. But at the end of the day, like, who can really push back against, you know, your greatness and your power and what you put into the sport? And I feel like it's just such it's a more difficult climb as a Black athlete in the sport of fencing.
Right. Tia, what about you? Any internal battles that you kind of deal with as a woman in the sports industry, specifically as an athlete, that you feel like men don't have to deal with?
I personally don't feel like I deal with anything because I don't care. But I think a lot of people would assume that because I think when you are a basketball player, that's the only thing you can do.
Right.
And if you're doing something else, you either not focused, not training hard. You don't really want to play. She don't need it, whatever the case may be. But I mean, like I said, everybody's gonna have an opinion about everything. So it's really hard to please everybody. So doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, it's nothing that nobody can stop because it's my platform, it's my story. So just being in charge of that and I guess dealing with it by not dealing with it.
I like that. Deal with it by not dealing with it. So I want to go down the line and I want to ask, knowing where you are at this moment in time, this moment in your life, professionally, personally, if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him or her? Justin, I'll start with you.
What would I tell myself? That thing that's in the back of your head that you always wanted to do, it's actually very possible. The cool thing and the frustrating thing about life is that you never know when it's gonna change. So whatever you're passionate about, like it's hard to find something that you're passionate about in this world and really stick with it. And for me, there were times, not even at 18, hell, it might have been 28. You know, I was freelance writing, I wanted to do this, but I'm working a job that I don't like. And you work for something your entire life, and then in an instant, your life changes. So I would tell myself, because, you know, like most other people, you know, I suffer from anxiety in my own way, and, you know, I get in my head way too much. But I would just tell myself, like, you have to be able to practice patience, you have to be able to practice empathy, not just for other people, but for yourself too, because you can beat yourself up.
Right.
And so I would just tell myself, like, yo, you got this. You know what you're doing, you're talented, you just have to wait for your opportunity, and you gotta be prepared for your opportunity, because those things are not buses, they don't come around every 15 minutes.
Go ahead.
I love that answer.
Funny.
We were talking about this backstage.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even, like, what would life be like if we were in college, you know, outside of just Facebook, if there was, like, Instagram, Twitter, and all these things happening, like...
Thank God I wouldn't.
I know, thank God, honestly. Because to me, social media is a double-edged sword in a sense, where maybe there is opportunity for you to see yourself, you know, and think, oh, well, I can do anything. Right? There's no limitation on what I believe is possible for my life, but at the same time, what we're looking at are really manufactured images, and most of us do suffer from anxiety, especially post-pandemic, you know, and like, how do you overcome, you know, that inner like demon that we all have that says that you can't, you know, you won't, it's not possible for you. And that's what I've been able to find through sport. I feel like sport has always been an opportunity to get back up. Like, even though you may lose, the outcome may not be what you wanted and what you anticipated, there's always opportunity for growth. Get back in the lab, get back in the gym, you know, and make sure you train so you're prepared for the next moment. So when I think back 18 or 28, whatever it was, I always say, like, you know, take the opportunities as they come and don't be afraid to put in the hard work. There's so much out there where you think that things are supposed to come so quick and so fast, and the reality is, like, none of us up here have gotten anywhere without hard work, injuries, like blood, sweat, tears, all those things. So you just have to really believe that hard work will get you to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Tia?
For me, I feel like I would tell that little girl, I would tell her, you know, I was actually blessed with a wonderful family and people to look up to in my household. So I think that just being able to share with other little kids or other people in my age group or whatever, what I had at home, and just be more open to allowing people to, you know, learn with me. I think I was blessed for it for myself, but I could have shared it with a lot more little kids, I think, that needed that or didn't have the home that I had. So
I love that. That's beautiful. That's a powerful thing. You know, you got to pass it on. I feel like that's the biggest thing, you know. You know, we think about when you open a door for someone, yeah, it's polite, but I think the deeper meaning is it helps to make the destination to the same or a similar place just a little bit easier, and I feel like that's everyone's responsibility as individuals who occupy space on this planet to leave it just a little bit better for the people that come after us. So my last question to the entire panel, so we'll take it down the line one more time, is what's the most optimistic trend in women's sports over the past 10 years, and what do you think that tells us about the future? Justin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I was reading a Nielsen survey recently where they polled sports fans across like 8 different countries, the big markets, including the U.S. And 84% of those sports fans said they were women's sports fans. And of that, 51% of that was men. So of course, yes, there's still a long way to go, but we're seeing, the rise in the ratings with, women's sports, in particular the WNBA. So like that, again, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in the tube. Like this is only going to get bigger, at least I hope, and it's going to take a while. And so that's what I see is a big trend. There's of course more, but when we're talking about women's sports, I want us to continue to be able to celebrate these women, celebrate their accomplishments, and understand just how pivotal, vital, and critical they are. I look at somebody like, and excuse me if I'm mispronouncing her name, Derrica Hamby from the Aces. Like she just won a title and she's pregnant. Like I can't imagine that. I stubbed my toe in the bed this morning. I was about to put myself on IR. I can't imagine doing something like that. So we have to be able to celebrate that the same way we celebrate Michael Jordan's flu game. Like he did it with the flu. She won pregnant. Like, I'm not trying to compare them, but like these stories are out there. We have to continue to cherish them and celebrate them because women's sports isn't going to regress, and it shouldn't, and I hope not, because the world will be a better place in a lot of ways.
One thing that we've seen over, especially the last 2 years with COVID, is this rise in activism. And when I think about that charge, it was led by a lot of female athletes. And the most encouraging trend that I've seen is really just a sense of self and like awareness and confidence in being able to express exactly who you are, whether that's Asia Wilson, celebrating her title and like being herself, or us feeling comfortable telling our stories and not feeling fear, pushback, retribution that we may not get the deal, we may not get the same opportunities. And I hope that we continue, to see that, not just in women's sports, for all of us, and really believe in our chance and opportunity to help change the world for the better.
For me, I think, it's crazy. The more we compare ourselves to the men, and it's the NBA against the WNBA or whatever, I feel like the men support us more than the women do.
That's a whole different conversation.
I don't know
but
if that's because women are not usually sports minded or not really into sports, so it take like maybe the husband or the brother or son, whatever, to bring them to the games. But the men are supporting. Now, shouts out to y'all. I just want to say that. But I think the ladies should get more into, showing their daughter what the WNBA look like, or bringing them to the game. So I think more support from the women would help also.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that women supporting women is the biggest allyship that we can have. I mean, we see how men uplift each other in so many different ways, whether that's, race specific or just the fact that it's men helping men. And I feel like women are powerful individually, but we're so much more powerful together. And I think there's been so many instances throughout history that we can go back and use that as a gauge. And I hope that as we continue to build our platforms within this industry, that we go ahead and have that same camaraderie with each other that the men have with each other. So I want to thank my incredible panel. Absolutely an amazing discussion. We could have talked about this for hours. I will leave you guys with this. Actually, let me go down the line real quick. Go ahead and plug your socials. We're going to go ahead and make everyone Insta-famous on here, except for Tia. She's already there, but you go ahead.
Mine is real easy. It's just my name, @Justin Tinsley on no, not even Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. I guess I'm Justin Tinsley on Facebook.
Are we really doing this right now?
Yeah, I want to go ahead, and anyone who wants to go ahead and connect with you, want to know where they can find you. I want them to be able to do that.
My social media is just my name, Ibtihaj Muhammad.
Okay, Tia, I'm sure.
I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Follow me on TikTok at Taya, really Tea Cooper 2.
Listen, and you guys can go ahead and keep up with me at Ash Nicole Moss. But again, amazing panel, and I just want to leave you all with this, that the future definitely is female, and it takes all of us to make sure that females of the present, and more importantly, females of the future, have incredible opportunities, and that we make this space better, safer, and more inclusive for women from all walks of life. So thank you so much.